Okay, welcome to part 3. In this video I'm going to show you how to use a line follower sensor. Now for those of you unfamiliar with a line sensor, they look like these. Typically you have between 1 and 3 on a robot, and they distinguish between different variations of black and white. So the closer a color is to black, the higher the number. The lower the number is, or closer it is to white, the lower the number. And because of that, these are all analog sensors. So you want to make sure that you are plugging them into one of your analog ports. For those of you unfamiliar with an analog port, they are one of these 8 ports on your Cortex. So you plug 1 in there, 2 in there, 3 in there, and it will work like analog. So analog, for those of you who need a quick refresher, just means that you can have any value, typically between 1 and 1023, depending on the sensor. So 1 to 1023. It might vary from sensor to sensor. I believe the light follower has a 1 to 512 range, but then again, it depends. But it is going to give you a range of values, the larger color being darker, the smaller value being lighter. While a digital signal is typically either 0 or 1. So that could be like a button, or it can be like a limit switch like we did before. But because we're getting a multitude of values, we are going to need to use the analog ports. So let's go ahead and start coding this. I'm going to go ahead and start a new standalone project. Autonomous or joystick are fine. And we're going to put in a while loop. And I'm just going to create the condition 1 is equal to 1 because that is always true. And we're going to create a variable. And this variable we're going to make an unsigned, let's just say unsigned character. We can always adjust that, and we're going to call this value 1. And we're going to set the value at 0. And I'm going to create a second one as well. And I'm going to call this value 2. And this is also going to be equal to 0. So this robot right now is going to be designed to manage 2 line followers. And if you want it to manage 3 line followers, you simply add another variable. And like you might have heard me from another video, we add variables because without them, the computer would immediately forget what value it had. So let's go ahead, grab this line follower inside of the inputs block, and I'm going to drag it into the while loop. And depending on where you plugged it into, you're going to specify. So I'm going to pretend like I plugged value 1 into 1, or one of my switch or followers into that one. And then I plugged the other one into analog port number 2. So I plugged them into 1 and 2. And this is going to go to value 2. And hit OK. And now all we need to do is set conditions. And we can create any condition we want. We can put an if, grab an if block. If value 1 is equal to, or let's say it is greater than 300, that's meaning it's a pretty dark color, what the robot's reading, and value 2 is greater than 300, okay, what's going to happen? We can say something like the motor is going to start. So we're going to turn on, let's say we had a motor on 1, we're going to get that one going, and we also are going to get our motor that we plugged into 10 to start moving as well. So it can essentially be reading these values at a constant state, and when this is true, it will print them out. Now it's important to note that the line follower sensor has to be relatively close to the ground to work. If it's even a couple millimeters higher than maybe 2 millimeters or so, it will not be giving you good values. So you want this sensor to pretty much be as close to the ground as possible. I'm going to create one more condition. I'm going to put an if after this if, and I'm going to do like the reverse. So what if it's a lot lighter? So if value 1 is less than or equal to 300, and value 2 is less than or equal to 300, then we're going to stop our motors. Whoops. And I didn't grab a motor there. Let me just delete that. I grabbed the servo, I believe. So putting that in, yeah, just think about the condition. If the values are greater than black, so if it's detecting black, then it's going to go straight. If it's detecting white, then it's going to stop. And based on, what you do, you can say if this one's detecting a black and this one's detecting a white, then maybe your wheels are going to rotate or something else is going to happen with your motors. Now, if you ever get paper or something and you're unsure what values you're getting, a good idea is to go over to the Tools command over here and then go over to your online window. And if your robot is plugged in, when you click on this and it has a battery and you turn it on, make sure that it isn't like on the ground because sometimes it just starts rolling. You can click the Enable button, and if you press this button and look over to your analog inputs, you should see values for where your line followers are plugged into. And then all you can do is take different pieces of paper, run them down the line follower, and you can get values for it. And using those values, you can create your own if statements so that it can understand different values, different colors, different ranges, and you can get your robot to do different things. So yeah, the online window is very, very useful. So that's it. That concludes this tutorial on the line follower. I will see you later.